Joyce Kalton was born October 18, 1919, on a farm near Beaver, South Dakota. She was the fifth child of Fred and Pearl Nelson.
A friend of his told him that there was 120 acres right next to him in South Dakota, and he said the land was cheap because it was homesteaded property. And he said it was a good place, and so he went there. Of course, there was no buildings, and my mother stayed in a farmhouse 3 miles away while he built the house first, almost completed, and then she went there with Al and our villa, and then he built the barn and gradually built all the other buildings on this farm. Real nice farm. My sisters and I, we had the job of taking the lunch out in the morning and afternoon to the thrashers, and water and coffee and lemonade because it was so hot. Yeah. And we'd have to walk out there barefooted and carry these baskets of food. My mother had a letter that had to get into the mailbox for mailman to pick up that day. And nobody wanted to take it to the mailbox about a mile away before they went to school. So he said, well, take Flossie. And I knew she was a wild thing, and you had to be careful. That was Al's horse. So I did. I was brave. I got on her, and I got to the mailbox, and I mailed it. And an old rattle-trap car was coming down behind me, and Flossie just took off for home. And when they came to the driveway, she just flew around there, and I just let the reins go and let her run, you know. And she was round, she was fat, you know, and I had a hard time. I was flopping from one side to the other, but she had a long mane, and I was just hanging on. I about pulled it out by the roots, I think. And I got to the barn. My dad saw us coming, and he thought, well, she'll go right through that barn door, and Joyce will get thrown off. But I ducked just in time to get in there. I almost went off into the manger. And so I'd ride the horse over to the neighbors, over to Olson's, and they all had all kinds of fruit trees, and get a whole big bag of apples, and I'd throw it across the horse's neck and come back home with it, and we made pies. The Thrashers always said they'd like to go to Mrs. Nelson's place because she had the best apple pie. She had bells on their harnesses at Christmas time, and put them on the sleigh. They could pull the sleigh. So we'd ride on the end of the runners, and then we'd get out and run a little bit through the snow. In South Dakota, we had went through a period when I was growing up of dust storms. It looks like it probably was a dust storm there, and depression. And so we got the oldest clothes we could think of, my brother Vince and Shirley, and I kind of was the boss, and I dressed them up. And so I took my brother's instruments, and we went outside, and he took a picture of us. It's too bad he didn't have a camera that was pick up the sound. But that was fun.
When Joyce's father passed away, her mother moved the family to Wells, Minnesota, to live with her aunt.
I was helping my cousin on the farm pick strawberries, and it had rained, and I was barefooted, you know, and mud all over, and we were picking these strawberries, and here comes this black Ford, and I thought, oh my gosh, is that Bob Salzman bringing that guy? And sure enough, he had dad's car, and I thought, after they left, I thought, God, he'll never make a date with me. Well, then when we got back to the house, the phone rings, and Bob, my cousin, was on it, and he says, would you, and I'll take your sister, Mary, and her, he'll be his cousin, and would you go to the show with Bill and I tonight? And I said, yeah, if I can get cleaned up in time. So we went to the movies, and a few days went by, and I was babysitting this little boy. I had a rope around his waist because he kept running out in the street, and I was coming up the street, and here's a black Ford driving in front of my aunt's house. And I thought, my God, that looks like Bill. And so I took the little kid, kept walking with him, and I was going to put him in the house, and Bill says, come here. He says, would you like to go to a movie tonight? Yeah, I said, it's okay. I have to ask my mother if I can go, you know. So she said I could go. Well, then from then on, the black Ford was running around my aunt's house quite a few times.
10 years and 2 children later, Joyce and Bill Kalton settled in Malacca, Minnesota.
One day, the principal calls, Mr. Rhodey, and he said, I understand that you were looking for work. And I said, yes, I was. Someone had told him this, and he said, are you still interested in working at school? He said, what's your background? And I said, well, I was a teacher for 6.5 years. And he said, why don't you come up here, tomorrow was Wednesday, he said, come up here and I'd like to interview you. So I went up there, and I asked him what the job involved, and he says, there's a lot of bookkeeping and a lot of money to work with. And I thought, oh, I've never done anything like that. I don't want this. So when he talked about the football money, that's what it was, you know, the games. I said, I've never had any bookkeeping. I said, typing, just my right arm, I can just do any kind of typing. But I said, bookkeeping, I never had any in high school. So I got up and started to leave. No, it's come back, he says, and sit down. He says, he says, so simple I can teach it to you in about 3 weeks. Let's try it 3 weeks. So that next Monday I went to work, and 3 weeks went by and he didn't say anything, and 6 weeks went by and he didn't say anything. And I was there 20 years.